If you said something to me and I responded to you by linking you to this video, then it's because you criticized me in a way that was astute, brilliant, and obviously undeniably correct. And I'm so scared to answer your criticism that I made this video to do it for me. It has nothing to do with me not wanting to waste my time repeating myself, for instance, because others have come along before you and said the exact same thing you did. And if they did do that, it would certainly not mean that you're extremely unoriginal and that the world is full of idiots. It would just mean that great minds think alike, which would be the one and only reason why I was able to put what you said into this video before you even said it. Not because I have a great mind. I'm not trying to say that. It's because other great minds came along before you. So congratulations. You're in good company. Let's begin, shall we? Here's the table of contents for this video. Just simply skip to the magnificently substantive criticism you made if you wish to hear me cope and seethe through a pathetic attempt to deal with your scathing brilliance. If, on the other hand, you're seeing this video because you're subscribed to me, well then, what the hell is wrong with you? First of all, why would you even subscribe to me? Just please leave immediately, because this video is not for the likes of you. This is only for people with genius level IQs. Not including myself, obviously. So just go, please. Subscribers are not allowed beyond this part. Period. Okay, I think they're gone. Let us begin with the most important and substantive criticism anybody has ever been able to muster against me. So if you made it, congratulations. You're among the top of the top. That brilliant criticism is that I wear extra small shirts to make my muscles look big. Now, you no doubt came to this conclusion by trying on an extra small shirt yourself and seeing how big it makes your muscles look, didn't you? Well done. Even Sherlock Holmes himself would be impressed with such deduction. In my own defense, however, I can't be fully blamed because all of my shirts are likely mislabeled. By sheer coincidence, out of all the many places I've purchased shirts over all the many years, they were all somehow mislabeled extra large. This shirt, and even this shirt, as you can see, is labeled extra large. Weird, right? But they can't actually be extra large if they wouldn't fit you the way they'd fit me, because there's no way I could possibly be much bigger than you, so I don't get it. As you can see, the weights that I lift every day aren't even that heavy. You can tell by how easy they are for me to lift. That doesn't mean I'm strong, that just means the weights are light. Sometimes other people pretend like they can't even pick them up at all, but they're obviously joking around. The weights you're seeing me lift in this video are probably only for doing yoga. You can't get big muscles doing that, so I can understand why you'd make the extra small shirt criticism. What really impresses me about you, however, is that even though my shirts are all mislabeled extra large, you still somehow knew that they're extra small. Brilliant. You are absolutely brilliant. I didn't even know that about my own shirts, but you figured it out. In my defense, I could get a 2XL or a 3XL shirt, but those would be too big around the waist, so I'd still have to compromise since off-the-rack shirts aren't really designed for people with my body proportions. But most importantly, the fit of my shirts pretty much proves that I'm also wrong about religion and politics. That's the real reason I told my subscribers to leave before we got into this, you see. If they made the connection between my shirts and my being wrong about religion and politics, then they'd all unsubscribe from me. But let's face it, my subscribers aren't bright enough to make that connection. But you, nah, I wasn't able to fool you. Well done. Well done. You are definitely not insecure about someone you disagree with having bigger muscles than you, because you could never be that shallow. So it has to be the shirts. Let us move on to the next criticism. This one really gets under my skin because nobody makes criticisms like this unless they're a very high-level scholar. And I had no idea that there were so many such scholars out there in the world, but there are. Fortunately, this criticism is so esoteric that a fraud like myself can hide behind obscure jargon, but that only works on people dumb enough to subscribe to me. The criticism is that my animations are poorly drawn. I know that pretty much makes me wrong about everything I've ever said, and I have to live with that. I have to be able to look myself in the mirror knowing that I drew Jeffrey's head by holding down the shift key, clicking and then dragging my mouse to make a perfect circle. But babies' heads are not perfect circles, yet I fucking drew it that way anyway because I'm a terrible artist. That's because animation is the exact same thing as fine art. For instance, Leonardo da Vinci could have animated the Mona Lisa. If he did a 10-minute animation of the Mona Lisa using 30 frames a second like I do, then he only would have had to paint her 18,000 times. And the only reason he did not do that is because he's fucking lazy like me. Now, there's other animations that obviously look way better than mine, and that clearly has nothing to do with the immense time involved, nor anything to do with entire studios that have teams of people working on them. For instance, a lot of people don't know this, but the typical Disney cartoon, like The Little Mermaid or The Lion King, is usually done in less than a week by a single intern. So I really don't have much of an excuse for this. I'm a terrible, shitty artist who makes terrible, shitty animations, which literally anybody else can do, which is why I'm sure that you, dear critic, could easily do it too. And the only reason you haven't used your animation skills to make a channel far better and far bigger than mine is because you're humble, you're modest, and most of all, you feel sorry for me. And you don't want to make me look even worse than I already do. Thank you for that. Thank you. Warning, if you have anything less than a 200 IQ, then you are not going to understand this criticism. And I'm not saying I understand it either, because my IQ certainly is not 200. So the only way for me to answer it is by dumping Scrabble tiles on the floor until they string together random words that I hope, through some sheer miracle of luck, make sense as an answer. I have no other option. That brilliant criticism is that my videos strawman religion. I get it, I really do. If you're a Christian and you think I'm strawmanning you, what I really should have done before posting the video is find out who you are and what exactly you personally believe about Christianity, because you are most likely not just a random viewer, but in fact the official representative of every denomination of Christianity and of every interpretation of the Bible. So if you don't agree with the version presented in my video or any of the rhetorical devices that I'm using, then I'm obviously strawmanning you personally because I directed the video at you personally, so I should have consulted you before making the video, and I didn't do that. So I sincerely apologize. And that brings me to the next ingenious criticism, which is that I interpret the Bible too literally. Some have even called me an atheist fundamentalist for that. If I, for instance, depict Genesis as having a literal Adam and Eve in a literal Garden of Eden after God created everything in 6 literal days, yet you know that Genesis was written as poetry, and not meant to be taken literally, then like the previous criticism, I am obviously strawmanning you personally and couldn't possibly be referring to people who do take it literally, because nobody does. No such person exists. So why would I make such a video directed at them? If I depict creation in that way, then I'd have to invent people who interpret it that way and give them a silly, non-existent name like, all right, this is just off the top of my head, but like creationists or something like that. But as we all know, everyone interprets the Bible correctly, except me and many of my foolish subscribers who were former Christians, who were tricked into liking my videos and who all interpreted the Bible correctly until I maliciously misled them into being atheists who now know nothing of the Bible whatsoever, because that's how knowledge works. In my defense, I do know the correct interpretation, but my purpose is to meet people where they are and deconstruct from there. It's not to play the role of a religious leader and teach them the original intent of Scripture. I'm trying to convince people to not be religious, regardless of how you interpret a text I believe to be false. Instead, I'd just be convincing them of how to believe in Christianity correctly, and that's not really my job. It's yours, if you care. This next criticism is probably the second most powerful one, just behind the shirts criticism, and that criticism is that I'm old. Yes, it's true. My foolish decision to be old began shortly after I was born. You see, I was never actually young like you. I came out looking like this. It was incredibly painful for my mother and frankly selfish of me. Now, I've been around for half a century. So even if you're in your early 30s, I'm still technically old enough to be your father. That's old. And that's just downright pathetic of me, isn't it? Out of the last 50 times the Earth went around the sun, I somehow managed to stay on the planet, just continuously breathing and eating and sleeping like a dipshit, and I'm sorry. I know that one day you won't be old like me, because you know that being old is, as you young'uns say, cringe and gay. So you'll wisely avoid it altogether. Well done. Well done. If I somehow embarrassingly make it to 60 or 70 or hell, even 80, you'll be laughing at me from your youthful grave, and once again I'll be forced to cope and seethe for utterly failing to become a corpse like you. Another criticism is that I think I'm so smart, but I'm not, or that I'm even euphoric. Now, don't go by the definition of euphoric in a regular dictionary, because that definition is wrong. As you can see by the top-rated definition in Urban Dictionary, euphoric actually means a feeling of great happiness resulting from being enlightened by one's own intelligence. Now, for this one, I will push back a little more than the other criticisms. You see, deep down, I know how dumb I am. And when you watched my videos, it's not that you thought I'm smart, and certainly not that you felt insecure about that because you disagreed with what I, a smart person, was saying. So you eased that insecurity by projecting and saying that I'm the one who so arrogantly thinks I'm smart, when really it's you who thought that. That's not it. That would never be it. The truth is that I'm extremely stupid, so stupid that I would believe the opposite of the truth about everything. So naturally, I would think that I'm smart when I'm actually dumb. That is a profound criticism indeed, but the truth is that I know I'm stupid. So unfortunately, this is the first criticism that is technically incorrect, yet despite that, it is still perfectly logical to conclude. So once again, it's totally understandable for you to make that criticism. Well done. Well done. This next criticism of me is most often made by the paradigm-shifting trendsetters who shape our culture, and that criticism is that I take myself too seriously. Well, that's obviously true. I am, after all, just a YouTuber like every other YouTuber. It's much cooler to not care about anything. And looking cool is what's most important in life, because what other people think of you is what matters most. Now, to add insult to injury, I'm not even as effective as you are. Talking about things that greatly matter to me is so pointless and useless that I shouldn't even bother making videos. I should just stick to being like you, my dear critic, who so much more effectively changes, shapes, and molds the world to your desired state by posting one comment at a time that can be seen by as many as dozens of people. What I do is outright foolish by comparison, putting my opinions and ideas into videos that only get seen hundreds of millions of times all around the world. That is stupid. Instead of being a YouTuber, I should be making angry Reddit posts about YouTubers, or creepy Kiwi Farms posts about YouTubers. That is not only far more prestigious and admirable, but much less of a waste of time. And those people who do that have earned the right, nay, the obligation, to take themselves far more seriously than I ever have, because when someone like myself stumbles into an audience of nearly 1 million people who so idiotically subscribe to me, it doesn't really matter what I say to them. I should not take responsibility for that. They were dumb enough to subscribe to me, so I can literally say anything to them and it wouldn't matter. That's why, as an influencer, you should just say the first thing that pops into your mind without actually doing any research, like a streamer deep into the 5th hour of an angry rant. In fact, you shouldn't take any care or pride in your work, no matter what it is, especially if you've managed to make a living doing something you enjoy, like I have. And isn't that in and of itself kind of pathetic? Doing something that I enjoy? Can you imagine, as old as I am, how much of my life I've utterly wasted by doing things that I enjoy every day? God, I'm getting depressed just thinking about it. And that, dear critic, is why your criticism really hit the mark. You got me. I take myself way too seriously. I should just stop caring about things and about myself, and especially about the family I support, and just start hating what I do. Then, maybe I can start to be truly effective and fulfilled like you are, angrily posting about idiots like me. Thank you for setting me straight. I will try to follow your advice, but I'll likely fail just as I've failed everything else I've ever tried. It's just like Eleanor Roosevelt said, idiots discuss ideas, dipshits discuss events, geniuses discuss people. This next criticism will only be understood by elite physicians because it is a highly technical diagnosis known as TDS, or Trump Derangement Syndrome. Now, I greatly appreciate you physicians out there who are able to expertly diagnose me over the internet pro bono, but that's not really fair. You deserve to be compensated for your hard work. So, if you send me your banking information, including routing numbers, account numbers, your PIN, address, full name, birthday, credit card number, expiration date, CCV, and social security number, I will reimburse you for your rigorous diagnosis. In the meantime, please allow me to attempt to describe the nuances of the terminal illness known as Trump Derangement Syndrome to anyone else who may be listening and who also may wish to donate for any expensive treatments I may need for it. You see, none of the other politicians throughout American history, especially presidents, have ever been extensively criticized until Donald Trump came along. What's bizarre about that is that Trump is obviously not contentious or controversial in any way, shape, or form. So the disease obviously warps the brain into falsely believing that Donald Trump has possibly done something wrong at some point, which is absurd. He's obviously very special and needs you, dear critic, to protect him. On the other hand, people like Joe Biden or Barack Obama likely did many things worthy of criticism. So if anyone had ever criticized them, which they never did, then that obviously would fail to qualify as any sort of syndrome in any way. Anyone who correctly admires Trump is likely someone who is highly intelligent and has the utmost class and style. That's you, dear physician. Your taste in politician is obviously impeccable, and my infernal malady sometimes impairs my mental abilities to so profoundly that I somehow see Donald Trump as being less than the James Bond, John Rambo, Jesus Christ combination that he obviously is. Instead of criticizing him, the healthy mind, like yours, is imagining what it would be like to make sweet, sweet love to him, to imagine picking the Dorito crumbs out of your pubic hair after a prolonged afternoon of sweaty, grunting commander-in-chief coitus. Unfortunately, unlike you, that vision has been permanently banned from my brain by my disability, and I have to live with that. You don't. So really, TDS is my burden to bear. This next criticism is only made by highly experienced psychologists. So again, if you're an average person, you're not going to understand it because it peels back the layers of my ego and id and exposes me for what I really am. And that criticism is that I talk about religion so much because I really do believe in God. After all, I don't make videos about the Tooth Fairy or the Easter Bunny or Bigfoot because I don't believe in them. So why would I talk about God unless I really believe in God? Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. It's not like people who believe in God affect our lives and our societies nearly as much as people who believe in the Tooth Fairy, so I really ought to be criticizing the Tooth Fairy instead. That would make more sense, because people actually believe in the Tooth Fairy and base their decisions on the Tooth Fairy, like which policies to support and who to discriminate against, as recorded in Tooth Fairy doctrine and as preached in Tooth Fairy churches all over the country. And of course, it makes perfect sense that the only reason I would mock an all-powerful God capable of sending me to hell is that I really do believe in him. That is an extremely intelligent conclusion to draw, and I am simply at a loss for how to answer it. So I am forced to admit that yes, I believe in God, and not just any God, but the exact same God you believe in. Well done, well done. From now on, I'll remember that the reason I'm not afraid to mock the most powerful being in existence is because I really do believe he exists, and that mocking him puts me in very real danger. That must be why I do it. Absolutely flawless logic on your part. This next criticism is usually only made by rigorous theologians who have gone through years of seminary and also have degrees in philosophy and geopolitics. And that criticism is that I'm too scared to criticize Islam. That's obviously true as well. While others have been killed for merely drawing cartoons of Muhammad, I instead drew a realistic depiction of Muhammad with a knife being held to his throat by Osama bin Laden, which is far less contentious and far more acceptable to Islamic extremists. Yes, I have also done cartoons poking fun at Islam, and yes, I have a character named Not Muhammad, who no Muslim would in any way take as a nod to the actual Muhammad. But you cannot be expected to know any of this, because it's far, far more reasonable to only consume a tiny fraction of my work or see a single comment that I've made, and then assume that I have never ever criticized Islam. Furthermore, it doesn't really matter that Islam is a tiny influence in my country, thus, it wouldn't be far more reasonable to criticize the religion that actually has power in my country, like Christianity. It also doesn't matter that several governments of Islamic countries have gone through the trouble of individually banning my videos, so YouTube isn't even allowed to display them in those countries. I'm sure that you, dear critic, have also experienced being banned by those governments because of your highly risky and highly visible critiques of Islam. I'm sure that, like me, dear critic, you could also receive the death penalty if you traveled to those countries. So thank you for your concern. I'm sure that for many of you, it has nothing to do with the contempt you have for me, not being properly grateful that you haven't killed me for criticizing your religion. Not that you'd ever want to do that, because you're certainly not jealous of Islamic extremists who are able to silence people like me. That could never be it. No, it must be that I'm simply a coward, and I know that you would never hurt me, because you wouldn't possibly be one of the many other Christians who have threatened me with violence over the years, and I thank you for that. So that concludes this batch of criticisms. I'm sure there are more I've probably forgotten about due to my old age and or stupidity, but if I remember them, then I'll be sure to post more answers. Okay? Thank you for listening.